Hey friends, welcome back to Prepping with Sarge. Hey, I am out at a speaking engagement that I got today, hence the tie at this building behind us. But I thought, since I don't get into the center of Charleston too often, I thought I'd do a little video, and today we are going to talk about 5 tips for those who are prepping within a city. Stay with me now. All right, folks, welcome back. Thank you for staying with me. So yeah, the sun's right in my eyes right now. It's over there, but that's okay. So let's get started on this 5 tips for prepping in a city. So the first thing you need to know is you need to have a family emergency plan. That includes meeting points if you cannot get back to home, right? You need to have some fallback points, at least 2, and different ways to communicate. If the cell phone towers go down, for example, how are you going to communicate? And that also includes like code words, right? So we're getting into an age now where people can use AI to fake each other's voices, and this is becoming a new scam where people will call a loved one and use the voice, especially for those who have a lot of online content, such as creators and things like that. Like there's hours and hours and hours of my voice, right? So somebody could call your family using that, an AI, to simulate your voice and say, I'm in trouble, I need money sent here, XYZ time, right? So have some code words for when you really are in trouble. Mrs. Sarge and I have talked about this in advance. We have several code words that we know, and if I say a certain one, that means we're flying into action. For example, we're in trouble and we're gonna have to fight for our lives. If I say this code word, and the people, it's not like fight or anything like that. It's a very ambiguous term that if I just say this word, she knows we got 3 seconds and then I'm moving into action, and she needs to move into action too. All right, next one is you need to have a bug out bag and a bug out plan for every member of your family. This should have several days worth of supplies for an emergency if you cannot stay home or you can't get home. Actually, a get home bag is not a bad idea either for everybody who is an adult that has some kind of a vehicle. It's not a bad idea to have a get home bag in your vehicle as well. But this should include some emergency supplies, a change of clothes, some hygiene items, things like that. There's been tons and tons of videos that's been done on YouTube on this, so if you don't know what a bug out bag is, all you have to do is search for that. Actually, I've done a couple videos about that as well, but you definitely need to have that. And remember, I've talked about that bug out doesn't necessarily mean you're bugging out to the woods like that fantasy that a lot of preppers have. Your bug out should be like a fallback location. Maybe it's a hotel, a motel, or preferably it's probably a family or friend's house that's a little bit further away from whatever it is that you're trying to get away from. And yes, I know a lot of people say, I'm not going to bug out, our plan is to bug in. Well, there are situations that can force you to have to bug out, such as a natural disaster or a chemical spill in your area. You need to really think about both. You know, I know there's situations where it would be very hard for people to bug out, but if you're able to, like if you're not bedbound or something like that, and you're a medical issue that's keeping you stuck at your place, then you should think about, okay, what if we had to? What if there was a wildfire or a chemical spill in my area? All right, number 3, you need to think about stockpiling some emergency supplies, and that includes medicines. I've talked about Jace Medical before. There's a link in the description down below. Jace Medical will allow you to obtain emergency antibiotics before you need them. They also now provide up to 12 months of medication for a lot of different types of medications, including mental health medications, heart medicine, cholesterol, diabetes, seizures, all kinds of things like that. Definitely check them out in the description down below, and there's a coupon code in there if you want to use them. But not just medicine, you need to have at least a couple weeks of food supply. That would be like your canned goods, your dry goods, rice and beans, things like that. And you need to have a steady supply of whatever you would need to protect you and your family, however you conceptualize that, based on, you know, the kind of civil unrest that we have seen. Just a couple years ago, we had some pretty bad riots here in the city behind me. Things got a little bit crazy. It came within a mile or so, well, a couple miles of where I live. Our residence was ready and our neighborhood was ready. We certainly were in communication. Everybody was ready to protect ourselves should it come to that. You need to be aware that things can go south in the city a lot faster than they can out in the countryside. Folks, if you're getting anything of value out of this, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Sorry about the air conditioning sounds that you're hearing over there. That we are in the high 90s here in the south, in South Carolina. It is pretty hot. Number 4, you need to know your city's risks and the evacuation routes. Here in Charleston, we are at huge risk for flooding and hurricanes, and you need to know several evacuation routes for getting out of your area. Things can get clogged up pretty fast when 600,000 people are trying to get out on the same road. So you need to know what those are. You need to know where which ways to go if you're trying to get out of this area. In our case, there's only a few options because we're a peninsula, so you have to head west to get out of Charleston. There's not a lot of way. There's only a couple ways out. Let me say it that way. What other risks are in your area? So I told you we have flooding and hurricane risks here. We're also prone to earthquakes. We've been very fortunate that most of the earthquakes here are under a 3.0 magnitude, but it's definitely a risk that goes on that you need to be aware of here if you live in Charleston, and know what they are for your area. Maybe you've got tornadoes, maybe you've got ice storms, maybe you've got blizzards, maybe you've got lava. But know what the risks are in your area and know how to evacuate. All right, last one, number 5. You need to, if you live in the city, the onus of responsibility for you is to stay informed. You really need to know what's going on in your local area, right? So that means pay attention to the local news, subscribe to apps that are affiliated with your local news and your local weather. One of the things that we found when we moved here is that our local meteorologists know our weather much better than the national news, right? So we notice a big discrepancy between, like, say, what the Weather Channel says versus our local news. Now, I'm not knocking on the Weather Channel. I like them a lot, actually. But our meteorologists know that there's some little nuances and quirks to the weather here in Charleston. And sometimes the Weather Channel will say, well, this storm's about to come right at us. And our weather people will say, no, we know our waters. We know how the currents run here. We know how the air currents run here. And our weather people, our local meteorologists, are much, much more accurate than the local ones. But you also need to know what other risks are going on in your area, right? So I need to pay attention to, we are a port city. I need to pay attention to what's going on with the port news. We have gang activity in our area. We have human trafficking in our area, right? So we're always paying attention to all that stuff. Find out the local news in your area. If you're not watching it, at least get the app for your smartphone and turn alerts on. I have avoided a lot of trouble because that thing will tell you when a certain road is flooded or there's been gunshots in a certain area and things like that. Really good resource. Don't sleep on that one. Folks, if you found this helpful at all, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to check in the description. I have coupon codes and discount codes in there for you from some of the brands that I like to work with that I think you will like as well. Keep planting your seeds, keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.